Hash. The rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling glass of the Fifth Avenue penthouse, turning the city skyline into a smudged wash of gold streetlights and blurry skyscraper silhouettes. Elara set her crystal wine glass down, so hard a thin ripple sloshed over the rim, staining the marble tabletop a faint burgundy. She was 25, soft honeyed blonde hair falling loose over the shoulders of a cream silk slip dress, fingers coiled tight around the stem of her glass, as she stared across the dining space at Julian Hale. He was 41, broad-shouldered, tailored charcoal wool suit stretched over a frame sharpened by decades of early morning polo matches and boardroom standoffs, the faint cedar and amber cologne he'd worn for as long as she could remember wrapping around the air between them like a trap. They'd known each other for 7 years, ever since her mother had partnered with his real estate firm to launch a string of luxury boutique hotels along the eastern seaboard. Her mother called him her oldest, most trusted business confidant, dragged him to every holiday dinner, summer lake retreat and charity gala the family hosted, always laughing and saying Julian was the big brother Elara never had. Everyone within their tight circle of old money Manhattan socialites bought the act wholesale. None of them suspect the quiet, burning obsession Elara had nursed for him half her life, the sleepless nights she'd spent replaying every fleeting smile he'd sent her way, every casual brush of his knuckles against hers passing a champagne flute at galas, every quiet moment they'd been left alone in a crowded room. She'd turned down every wealthy, well-bred bachelor her mother had pushed her toward, turned away weekend trips to the Hamptons with eligible heirs, lied about work deadlines to skip cocktail parties if she knew Julian wouldn't be in attendance, all because no other man could stir the quiet, all-consuming ache he lit inside her chest with a single glance. Julian's marriage had never been anything more than a corporate merger, a binding contract signed 16 years prior to lock in a merger between his family's real estate empire and the Vanderbilt shipping fortune his wife Seraphina owned. Seraphina was 39, ice-cold, sharp-featured, a socialite whose entire existence revolved around front-page charity appearances, private jet trips to Milan and Paris, and discreet affairs with male runway models and European art dealers that she made no real effort to hide from her husband. They shared the penthouse, but rarely shared a bed. Their master suite split into 2 separate wings with adjoining bathrooms. They never stepped foot in each other's spaces. They attended galas side by side for the press photos and board meeting optics, then parted ways the second the event wrapped, Seraphina rushing off to 5-star hotel trysts across the city while Julian retreated to this empty glass tower to drown the loneliness of a marriage built on nothing but legal fine print and inherited wealth. Elara had stormed over tonight, after a brutal screaming fight, with her mother at their Long Island lake house. Her mother had caught her lingering by the pool after dinner, eyes locked on Julian as he chatted with a group of investors, teased her relentlessly about a childish schoolgirl crush on a man twice her age, demanded she grow up and stop fixating on someone who was a married family business ally. The words had split open every secret Elara had buried deep beneath layers of polite, distant composure, and she'd grabbed her sports car keys and raced into the city without a single text to explain her whereabouts, reckless and unthinking, only desperate to see him, if just for a minute to ease the raw, hollow longing gnawing at her ribs. She'd only planned to apologize for her mother's awkward jab, exchange a few quick pleasantries and slip back out into the rain before she embarrassed herself beyond repair. But Julian had cut off every attempt at small talk the second she'd stepped through the front lobby doors, his tone low and rough, stripped of every polite mask he wore in public, laying bare a feeling Elara had convinced herself existed only inside her own wild, unspoken daydreams. "I can't keep pretending I don't burn for you," he'd said, the words heavy enough to hang thick in the damp, rain-scented air, and Elara's throat had locked up instantly, every planned apology vanishing from her mind entirely. Her fingers tightened around the crossbody leather bag slung over one shoulder, heart hammering so loud she could hear the thud echoing in her own eardrums, every rational thought screaming at her to step back, to leave before they both destroyed everything their families had built over decades of loyal partnership. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered, voice cracking thin with suppressed panic. my mother trusts you with every part of her business and our family name. Seraphina is your legal wife, bound to you by a prenuptial agreement worth billions of dollars. If anyone finds out what's passing between us, society will tear our lives apart piece by piece. We have lines we were always supposed to refuse to cross, no matter how badly we crave each other. Julian pushed his oak dining chair back with a scraping drag against the marble floor, closing the short distance between them in 3 long, deliberate strides, towering over her small frame, until she stumbled backward, hips hitting the cold hard edge of the table, trapped between the polished stone surface and his solid chest. "Can't what?" he murmured, one hand lifting to brush a slow, tender knuckle across her cheek, the touch soft enough to make hot, unbidden tears well up behind her lashes. "Can't admit the tension that hums between us every single time we share a room. Can't pretend you don't rush to every function I attend, just to catch a single glance of me across a crowded ballroom. Can't ignore how you flinch away from every man who tries to dance with you at galas, like none of them are even capable of making your blood heat the way one quiet look from me does." Elara bit down hard on her lower lip to hold back a sob. 4 years of silent, unrequited yearning crashing over her all at once. Every night she'd laid awake replaying small stolen moments. Every dinner party, where she'd forced herself to glance away when his eyes found hers. Every quiet moment she'd buried her feelings deep down out of loyalty to her mother and respect for his broken marriage. She'd spent years convincing herself this was nothing more than a juvenile infatuation, a passing crush she'd outgrow once she found a man closer to her own age with a steady life and a normal, uncomplicated relationship. But every time she'd tried to move on, every blind date her mother set up, every weekend getaway with friends, her mind drifted straight back to Julian, to the quiet kindness he'd shown her when her father passed away 3 years prior, to the way he'd listen for hours when she ranted about the pressure of stepping into her mother's hotel empire, to the quiet safety she only ever felt standing beside him. "I thought this was only one-sided," she whispered, hot tears spilling down her cheeks and streaking her foundation. "I spent every night convincing myself you only saw me as your business partner's sheltered young daughter, someone you look out of obligation, nothing more. I never dared imagine you carried the same scorching, forbidden longing I hide from every living person around us." Julian's hand slid down from her cheek to curl loosely around her jaw, tilting her face upward so she couldn't look away from the dark, stormy hazel of his eyes. Every wall of polite detachment crumbled completely in his expression. "I want everything with you, Elara. I want to pull you away from every judgmental socialite stare, every rule society and our families force us to abide by. I'm tired of hiding how badly I need you every time we're in the same room, tired of watching you waste your youth on boys who will never appreciate half the heart you have to give." Before Elara could form a single reply, a sharp, loud knock boomed against the penthouse's solid oak front door, echoing through the empty open concept living space, and cutting their charged moment clean in two. Julian's entire body stiffened on the spot, the warmth and raw vulnerability melting off his features in an instant, replaced by a cold, guarded mask of the composed real estate tycoon he presented to the world. All color drained from his cheeks, his grip falling away from her jaw as if her skin burned him to the touch, panic flashing bright in his irises as he glanced toward the entry hallway. "It's Seraphina," he muttered, voice dropping to a strained, urgent murmur. "She texted me this morning saying she was flying back from Milan a full 3 days ahead of her scheduled trip, never told me she'd landed in the city tonight. She only drops by unannounced when she suspects I'm hiding something inside these walls, and she's hated you from the very first moment we met." Elara's blood turned to thick, icy slush in her veins, terror coiling tight in her stomach. Seraphina had made no secret of her unbridled hatred for her from the very first charity gala they'd crossed paths at 2 years prior, tossing snide, cutting remarks about Elara's obsessive juvenile fixation on Julian within earshot of dozens of wealthy guests, openly accusing her of clinging to him intentionally to drive a wedge between their already fractured marriage. If Seraphina rounded the corner and spotted them alone together in the dim, rain-streaked penthouse, after 10 p.m., with the unspoken, charged tension still thick enough to reach out and touch hanging between their bodies, she would manufacture a tabloid scandal powerful enough to collapse both her mother's hotel brand and Julian's billion-dollar real estate firm overnight. She'd leak every fabricated rumor to every major New York and European gossip magazine, paint Elara as a home-wrecking gold digger preying on a married middle-aged businessman, turn both their family names into the laughingstock of every high society circle across 2 continents, and destroy the decades-long business partnership that had kept both their empires thriving through market crashes and global recessions alike. "Hide," Julian rushed out, words sharp and rapid with urgent panic. "Down the guest hallway to your left, the first floor-to-ceiling linen closet against the far wall. Lock the small metal latch on the inside handle, and don't make a single sound no matter what you hear echoing through the house. I'll send her off as quickly as I possibly can. Don't step foot out of that closet until I send 3 consecutive rapid text messages to your personal cell phone. That's our safety signal." Elara didn't waste a single second arguing or hesitating, spinning on her heel and sprinting down the shadowed marble guest corridor, as fast as her silk slip dress would allow, yanking the heavy linen closet door open and slipping inside the narrow, cramped storage space, clicking the tiny metal lock shut behind her back to seal herself away from the main living area. The air inside the closet reeked of Julian's spare leather blazers and expensive Italian shoe polish. Every shallow breath she took filling her nose with his familiar amber cedar scent, tangling the terror thrumming through her bones with the desperate longing she couldn't suppress, no matter how hard she tried. She pressed her ear flat against the thin wooden closet door, every sound from the entryway filtering through the flimsy paneling clear as day, and heard the heavy front door swing open, Seraphina's icy, posh transatlantic French accent cutting sharp through the quiet rain hum outside the windows. "Darling, I spotted a matte black custom Porsche sports car parked in the private underground garage when I pulled my rolls into the parking bay downstairs," Seraphina purred, laced with biting, mocking suspicion. "Care to explain which young woman has been visiting your private penthouse long after nightfall on a weekday evening?" Julian's practiced, calm, corporate tone filtered back through the wood grain as he crafted a hollow, flimsy lie to divert her rage. "A junior legal associate from my downtown firm stopped by to drop off finalized merger paperwork for the Hudson Yards project we're closing next month. She left the penthouse fully 5 minutes before you pulled up to the building driveway. There's no one else inside these walls with me right now." Seraphina let out a shrill, bitter laugh that sent a cold shiver racing down Elara's spine inside the cramped closet, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch against the stacked wool coats hanging around her shoulders. "A junior legal associate, driving a 6-figure custom Porsche sports car. I know every single lawyer on your in-house legal team from annual shareholder galas. Not a single one of them could afford a vehicle that expensive, not even the senior partners, with 7-figure yearly bonuses. Don't waste your breath spinning pathetic lies for my benefit, Julian. I've suspected you've kept a secret young mistress tucked away in this penthouse for months now, and I've hired a full team of private investigators to track every vehicle that enters and exits this building's underground parking facility 24 hours a day." Elara curled her hands into tight, shaking fists at her sides inside the dark storage space, every worst-case scenario flashing rapid through her mind one after another. Seraphina already had eyes on every movement she made in the city, already tracked her car to Julian's building multiple times without her knowledge, waiting for the perfect moment to strike and blow their hidden connection wide open to the entire world. If Seraphina tore through every room of the penthouse and pried open the closet door where she hid, there would be no plausible excuse, no hollow business lie to hide behind, no way to salvage either of their reputations once the photos hit front-page gossip headlines across every major publication on both sides of the Atlantic. I intend to search every single room of this penthouse from the master suite down to the guest bathroom linen closets, Seraphina snapped, the click of her diamond-studded stiletto heels echoing loud against the marble hallway floors, as she wandered deeper into the open-concept home, moving past the dining room where Julian and Elara had stood moments prior locked in charged conversation. If I find anyone hiding anywhere within these walls, I'll hand over every photograph and witness statement my investigators have collected to every tabloid editor I maintain personal connections with across Paris, London and New York City. You know full well I don't care how much financial damage this scandal inflicts on our joint corporate holdings, or your personal family fortune. I would burn every asset we own to the ground before I share my legal husband with a child barely old enough to legally sip champagne at a 5-star charity gala. Julian's tone hardened sharp with suppressed, barely contained anger, the patience he normally maintained for his wife's endless petty cruelty fraying thin at the edges. This is my sole private residence separate from our shared townhouse on Park Avenue, Seraphina. You have no legal right to storm through my home uninvited and tear through every room based on baseless paranoia and unfounded jealousy. That sports car belongs to a client's daughter who stopped by to deliver legal documents on her father's real estate portfolio. There is no secret woman hiding anywhere within these walls for you to hunt down tonight. Baseless paranoia. Seraphina's footsteps halted directly outside the guest hallway door, mere feet away from the locked linen closet where Elara trembled, every heartbeat loud enough to rattle her ribcage against the wooden door frame. I watched that blonde girl walk through the building's glass lobby an hour before I flew my private jet back into the city tonight. Cream silk slip dress, the exact same outfit Elara Bennett wears to every single business dinner you're hosting alongside her mother's hotel group. The 25-year-old orphaned heiress your oldest, dearest business partner raised as her only daughter, the girl you can't stop staring at every time we attend joint charity fundraisers side by side. Elara's heart seized up entirely inside her chest, all air vanishing from her lungs for a split second. Seraphina had memorized her exact physical appearance, tracked her movements through the luxury high-rise lobby, attached her full name and family background to the vague suspicion she'd nurtured for months on end. There was no escaping detection if Seraphina twisted the guest bedroom doorknob and stepped fully into the hallway to tear open the closet hiding her trembling frame behind locked metal latches. She heard Seraphina's palm press flat against the wooden guest room door, the faint, creaking twist of the brass handle, as she pushed the door wide open and stepped inside the empty bedroom attached directly to the linen closet storage space where Elara hid locked away from view. I will comb every nook, every blanket chest, and every hidden storage closet inside this guest suite, until I've verified there's no one hiding from my sight. Seraphina drawled cold and venomous. If I catch Elara Bennett concealed anywhere within this room, every protective clause in our prenuptial agreement shielding your personal real estate holdings is rendered null and void instantly. I will file for an immediate, public, brutal divorce proceeding and seize 70% of every company you own, while personally ensuring your oldest business partner disowns her ungrateful, home-wrecking daughter permanently for ruining our family's corporate alliance. Panic clawed sharp at Elara's throat as she fumbled inside her crossbody bag for her personal cell phone, fingers shaking so violently she nearly dropped the sleek silver device onto the closet's stacked shoeboxes, ready to type a desperate, pleading text to Julian begging for a way to escape the trap they'd stumbled into together. Before she could tap a single letter on the screen, heavy footsteps trundled back out of the guest bedroom and toward the main living room area, followed by the rough thud of a crystal wine bottle being slammed down hard against the marble kitchen countertop. Seraphina's furious voice carrying clear through the thin wood separating them. Fine, I will abandon this search for tonight's sake, but mark my words carefully, Julian Hale. First thing tomorrow morning, I will dispatch my full team of private investigators to tail Elara Bennett's every single movement 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If the two of you so much as exchange a lingering glance across a charity gala ballroom floor in the next month, I will blow this entire sordid, forbidden secret wide open for every wealthy socialite, and tabloid reader, on 2 continents, to dissect and mock without mercy. I tolerate our loveless, transactional marriage solely for the benefit of our shared board seats and international business connections, but I will never sit back and allow you to entertain a child young enough to be your daughter behind my back, humiliating me in front of every elite acquaintance we share. Julian did not offer a single word of rebuttal in response, and Elara heard the heavy front door slam, shut hard enough to rattle the penthouse's steel door frames minutes later, Seraphina's Rolls-Royce engine rumbling out of the underground garage and vanishing into the rain-soaked Manhattan streets. She waited a full 3 minutes, trembling against the stack of leather blazers inside the dark closet, counting every tick of the antique grandfather clock echoing from the living room until 3 rapid, consecutive text alerts pinged her cell phone screen in her bag, Julian's prearranged safety signal lighting up the display to tell her it was safe to emerge from hiding. She fumbled to undo the tiny metal lock on the closet door, and pushed the heavy linen panels open wide, stepping shakily out into the empty guest bedroom, her legs weak and unsteady from the flood of adrenaline and terror that had flooded her system for the past 40 minutes. Julian stood in the hallway doorway waiting for her, deep exhaustion etched heavy across every line of his face, every trace of the fiery, vulnerable longing he'd shown her minutes prior erased completely beneath a mask of weary, crushing dread. "She's not bluffing about the private investigators or tabloid leaks," he said, crossing the hallway to close the short gap between them once more, moving far slower than he had earlier, as if he feared she would turn and run out of the penthouse for good now that the brutal reality of their dangerous entanglement had fully sunk in for both of us. Seraphina controls dozens of personal media contacts across every major European and American gossip outlet. She can manufacture a career-ending scandal for both of us before the sun rises tomorrow morning if she captures tangible photographic proof of us meeting privately behind closed doors like this tonight. Elara leaned her back flat against the guest bedroom's matte grey wallpaper, staring blankly down at the marble floor beneath her bare feet, every ounce of fragile hope she'd clung to moments prior evaporating thin into the rain-scented air filling the penthouse. "I should leave this instant," she whispered hollow. "I never should have rushed over here tonight in a reckless fit of unthinking emotion after my mother's fight. She's already tracking every car I drive through the city, memoized my clothing and my full name, watching every room I step foot in at every social event we both attend. If we keep sneaking private late-night meetings like this, every single person we love and every business we've spent decades building will pay the brutal price of our selfish, forbidden attraction to one another. Leaving will not erase the 4 years of quiet, burning longing we've both carried locked inside our chests," Julian replied, reaching one hand out to brush a loose strand of blonde hair back behind her ear, his touch soft and weighed down with quiet sorrow rather than the fiery hunger he'd shown her earlier in the dining room. "I've spent every year since I first realized how deeply I crave you trying to push you far away from me for your own safety and reputation. I turned down every family dinner invitation your mother sent my way if I knew you'd be in attendance, skipped every lake house weekend retreat the Bennetts hosted, told myself repeatedly that this desperate pull I feel toward you was nothing more than a fleeting midlife distraction I would outgrow with time and distance. None of my attempts to separate us have worked, Elara. I cannot force myself to stay away from you no matter how hard I try to fight this connection between our souls." Elara lifted her head to lock eyes with him once more, hot fresh tears spilling down her cheeks unbidden, all the loneliness and suppressed longing of years crashing over her shoulders in a single overwhelming wave of grief and relief mixed together. "What are we supposed to do for the rest of our lives? Hide inside cramped linen closets every time Seraphina shows up unannounced at your penthouse? Sneak around Manhattan like fugitives running from the law, too afraid to exchange more than a passing glance in front of mutual business acquaintances? My mother has considered you her closest, most trusted friend for 15 years. She will feel irreparably betrayed the second she uncovers the truth of our hidden feelings for each other, convinced I threw away every piece of the steady, reputable life She's spent decades building for me just to chase a married man 14 years my senior trapped in a hollow, loveless transactional marriage. Julian's jaw tightened hard as he processed her quiet despair, resolve hardening in his dark hazel eyes, as he laid out the plan he'd been drafting in secret for months, without sharing a single word with her until this night arrived. I've already retained a team of top-tier divorce attorneys specializing in high-net-worth old money asset separations, and we've spent months compiling irrefutable photographic evidence documenting Seraphina's endless extramarital affairs across Paris, Milan and London over the past decade. Every hotel lobby surveillance clip, every candid shot of her leaving five-star suites with different male companions after midnight, every private jet passenger log proving she flew overseas to rendezvous with her lovers under the pretense of charity summit travel has been filed away in our legal vault downtown. The prenuptial agreement Seraphina's family forced me to sign 16 years ago is riddled with critical legal loopholes we've uncovered through hundreds of hours of forensic contract analysis. Loopholes that will allow me to walk away from our marriage retaining the vast majority of my real estate holdings and corporate stock shares, if we can prove Seraphina repeatedly breached the fidelity clauses embedded within the original legal document. Once the divorce judge signs the finalized separation decree, there will no longer exist any legal barrier standing between us, no marital title for Seraphina to weaponize against our budding relationship to destroy our lives and family reputations. And what of my mother in the aftermath of the divorce? Elara whispered, her voice thin and broken with lingering fear of the heartbreak her mother would endure upon uncovering their secret romance. She's known you longer than she knew my late father, built her entire international hotel empire hand in hand with your corporate support and business guidance. Discover we've hidden this burning, mutual attraction from her for years on end will shatter the lifelong friendship and trust she's placed in you beyond any possibility of repair, leaving her torn between her only daughter and her most valuable professional ally. Give her time to process the full truth once the divorce proceedings reach their final stages, Julian soothed, resting his forehead light against hers, his warm breath fanning soft over her tear-streaked cheeks. Your mother's primary priority in life has always been your personal happiness above every corporate merger and social alliance we've built together over the years. She's witnessed firsthand how cold, cruel and emotionally vacant Seraphina's treatment of me has been throughout our 16-year hollow marriage, watched how my entire demeanor softens and lightens the second you step foot inside any room we share together at business functions, even if she's never fully pieced the two observations together to uncover our hidden feelings yet. Once she fully understands my marriage was dead and empty long before I ever began to develop genuine romantic affection for you, she will slowly, gradually come to accept that we belong side by side, no matter how much initial hurt the revelation brings her in the immediate aftermath of our confession to her face. Before Elara could craft a single response to his quiet promise, her personal cell phone buzzed violently inside her crossbody bag, her mother's full name flashing bright across the screen, the incoming call lighting up the dark closet interior where she'd stowed the device earlier that evening. Elara's blood ran cold once more, panic surging fresh through her chest as she realized her mother had undoubtedly spent hours pacing the lake house living room, terrified out of her mind after Elara stormed off mid-argument, without a single text or phone call to explain where she'd fled to in the pouring city rain hours prior. She swiped the reject call button instantly, shoving the cell phone deep down into the bottom of her leather bag to muffle any further vibration alerts that might echo through the quiet penthouse walls and draw unwanted attention to her hidden presence within Julian's home. Guilt gnawed heavy at her insides as she pictured her mother sitting alone in their lake house's dim living room, empty cold tea mug abandoned on the oak coffee table, eyes red-rimmed with worry over her daughter's unaccounted-for disappearance into the dangerous rainy Manhattan evening hours prior to midnight. Julian noticed the panicked flicker of dread cross Elara's face the second the phone lit up with her mother's contact name, his brow furrowing soft with quiet concern as he spoke gentle words to ease her racing mind. Your mother is calling you, frantically searching for your whereabouts, after your explosive backyard argument earlier tonight, isn't she?" Elara nodded slowly, swallowing thick guilt that burned the back of her throat raw. "I stormed out of the lake house without sending a single text to inform her where I was headed, left her sitting alone waiting for hours, convinced I'd crashed my sports car on the rain-slicked Long Island highway somewhere between our estate and Manhattan's midtown skyscrapers. You need to return to the lake house as quickly as you possibly can, before she grows so desperate, with fear she contacts local highway state troopers to file a missing person report on your vehicle and personal identity," Julian told her, stepping back to create a small, respectful gap between their bodies to remind them both of all the family obligations and societal rules weighing heavy down on their forbidden love. "But promise me one thing before you drive back out to Long Island tonight. Don't shut me fully out of your life once you cross the lake house driveway threshold. Sneak your cell phone underneath your bedroom comforter once your mother falls asleep downstairs late tonight. Send me a private encrypted text through a secure untraceable messaging app the second the house falls silent, and she's fully asleep for the night. I need confirmation you returned home safely, and I cannot bear the thought this fragile connection between us was nothing more than a fleeting one-night rain-streaked confession inside this penthouse that vanishes the second you walk out the front door into the city rain again." Elara hesitated for a long moment, torn violently between the safe, predictable, guilt-free life she would lead if she cut every hidden contact with Julian cold turkey that night, and the intoxicating, irreplaceable comfort of being seen and loved fully by the only man who had ever stirred genuine, unshakable passion inside her heart for years on end. Every logical, rational voice screaming in the back of her mind insisted cutting all ties with him permanently was the only sensible path forward to protect her mother's business and family reputation from Seraphina's vengeful tabloid sabotage. Yet every beat of her heart begged her to hold on to the quiet miracle of mutual longing they'd uncovered in the dim penthouse dining room hours prior. "I will send you a message once the lake house falls silent tonight, after my mother retires to her bedroom downstairs," Elara conceded quietly, voice soft and shaky with conflicted emotion. "But we must exercise extreme, unbreakable caution with every line of communication we exchange moving forward. If Seraphina's hired private investigators manage to trace our cell phone signal records back to one another's contact information, we will hand her irrefutable written proof of our secret hidden romance on a silver platter to weaponize against both our lives and corporate empires overnight." Julian reached into the inner pocket of his tailored charcoal suit jacket and pulled out a brand new, unmarked burner smartphone with no linked bank accounts, social media profiles, or personal identity information attached to the device, pressing the slim black plastic phone firmly into Elara's waiting palm to hand it over to her for exclusive private communication between the two of them from this night onward. No linked personal phone numbers, no shared contact lists between this burner device and either of our primary personal cell phones, untraceable encrypted cellular service with no customer data stored on any corporate server that Seraphina's private investigative firms can subpoena through court filings, he explained in a low, careful tone to ensure she fully understood the critical safety purpose of the anonymous device he'd prepared months in anticipation of this exact moment. Only send and receive messages to one another through this burner phone moving forward. Never use your daily personal smartphone to exchange a single word with me about our private meetings or hidden feelings for each other. Leave your regular personal cell phone locked inside your lake house bedroom dresser drawer every single time you plan to drive into Manhattan to meet me at this penthouse or any other private location, so Seraphina's surveillance teams cannot track your vehicle's GPS coordinates cross-referenced with your primary cell tower data to map our secret rendezvous routes across the city's highway network. Elara tucked the anonymous burner phone deep into the hidden inner lining of her cream silk crossbody bag, the smooth cool plastic of the device a tangible, weighty symbol of the dangerous, hidden bond they were forced to sustain beneath layers of lies and secrecy to evade Seraphina's relentless stalking and retaliatory surveillance operations moving forward into the coming months. Where can we safely meet face-to-face without Seraphina's private investigators capturing photographic evidence of our time spent together side by side? Elara asked quietly, staring down at the unmarked burner phone clutched tight between her fingers, as she worried over every possible public and private location within Manhattan and the surrounding Long Island suburbs they could risk visiting without drawing the vengeful socialite's watchful eye. I own a secluded private mountain cabin tucked 3 hours north of Manhattan deep within upstate New York's pine forest mountain ranges, Julian replied, a faint flicker of cautious hope lighting up his tired hazel eyes as he described the remote hidden property Seraphina had never once learned existed over the 16 years of their marriage. No residential neighbors within a 5-mile radius of the cabin's gravel driveway. No highway traffic cameras lining the winding dirt forest roads leading to the front porch entryway. No local town gossip or luxury resort staff to recognize our family names and relay sightings back to Seraphina's network of informants scattered across elite social circles statewide. I purchased the cabin using an anonymous offshore LLC holding company years ago as a personal escape from the suffocating emptiness of my loveless Park Avenue townhouse and Manhattan penthouse marriage home, never once disclosing the property's existence to Seraphina or any member of her wealthy family's corporate circle. We can drive up to the mountain cabin for full weekend retreats on the rare occasions your mother departs Long Island for multi-day national charity conference events out of state, and Seraphina flies overseas to her Parisian and Milanese socialite galas without advance warning to track my personal travel movements. For those 3 full days tucked away deep within the isolated pine woods, we can strip away every mask of polite distant acquaintanceship we're forced to wear in front of mutual business partners and high society acquaintances alike, drop all the endless lies and hidden closet hiding, and simply exist together openly without constant paranoia of surveillance cameras and vengeful private investigators breathing down our necks every single minute of the day. A fragile spark of quiet relief ignited deep within Elara's chest at the mention of the remote mountain cabin hidden far from Manhattan's elite gossip circuit. A rare space where they would no longer need to duck into locked linen closets or exchange only fleeting stolen glances across crowded charity ballroom floors to avoid Seraphina's watchful vengeful gaze. For 72 uninterrupted hours every few weeks, they could cast aside every rule society and their warring family empires forced them to abide by, and simply be two people deeply, genuinely in love without the crushing weight of endless secrecy hanging heavy over their shoulders. Every waking moment. Before Elara could respond with a quiet reply to his cabin plan, her primary personal cell phone buzzed violently once more inside her crossbody bag, her mother's contact name flashing bright against the screen a second time that evening, a clear sign her mother's worry had spiraled into full-blown panic after hours of unaccounted-for silence and no text updates from Elara to ease her fears about her daughter's safety driving through the rain-soaked city highways. "I truly must depart for Long Island immediately now," Elara murmured, turning her gaze away from Julian's soft hazel eyes toward the penthouse's rain-streaked front entry hallway, every second spent lingering within his private high-rise residence amplifying the risk Seraphina might circle back around the building's underground garage to catch them together a second time that night. Julian stepped forward to catch her wrist gentle between his fingers before she could cross the marble living room floor toward the front door, his grip light, but unyielding to hold her in place a final moment to deliver a heartfelt promise he intended to uphold through every coming month of hidden struggle and Seraphina's unrelenting harassment. "Wait one single minute before you rush out into the rain and drive back to the lake house estate," he begged soft and sincere. "I need you to fully understand I am not chasing a fleeting midlife thrill or meaningless temporary fling with you behind my wife's back while my divorce paperwork processes through the court system downtown. This burning, all-consuming love I hold for you is permanent, not a passing novelty that will fade once the initial rush of our hidden secret meetings wears thin after a few short weekends at the mountain cabin together. I intend to build a full, permanent shared life with you once the divorce judge officially dissolves my hollow 16-year transactional marriage to Seraphina, a life free of locked hiding closets, untraceable burner phones, tabloid blackmail threats, and endless family business conflicts tearing us apart at every turn. I no longer wish to spend every remaining decade of my life trapped inside a loveless empty penthouse surrounded by glass and rain, pining silently for the only woman who has ever made me feel genuinely alive and whole simply by stepping foot inside a room I occupy. Elara leaned forward on pure, unthinking impulse, pressing a soft, tentative fleeting kiss against the sharp defined line of his jaw, the brief gentle brush of her lips against his skin sending a flood of scorching heat surging through every nerve ending in her body. Every 4 years of suppressed longing momentarily released in that single small contact between them. I crave that same permanent, unhidden future with you too, she whispered quiet against his jawline, no matter how countless insurmountable obstacles stand stacked between us right now courtesy of Seraphina's vengeful surveillance, and my mother's unknowing loyalty to your 16-year corporate partnership alliance. Julian's grip tightened minutely around her wrist for a split second, his dark hazel eyes darkening with renewed raw longing, yet he forced himself to loosen his hold and step backward to create a safe respectful gap between their bodies, knowing if they surrendered fully to the fiery passion thrumming between them in that rain-streaked penthouse living room, they would lose all self-control and risk Seraphina circling back to catch them intertwined together in plain sight through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows overlooking the building's underground parking garage entry ramp. Drive safely through the slick Manhattan highway tunnels on your route back to Long Island's Lake House estate, he urged soft and gentle. Send me the first encrypted text via the new burner phone the exact second you lock your second-floor bedroom door shut behind you once you arrive home safely late tonight. Elara nodded once, slipping out of the penthouse's heavy oak front door and rushing fast down the marble elevator lobby stairwell toward the underground parking garage levels where her matte black Porsche sports car waited parked beneath dim fluorescent overhead lights, her mind spinning non-stop with a chaotic whirlwind of raw terror, giddy forbidden thrill and fragile quiet optimism about the unknown hidden future stretching out ahead of them through months of Seraphina's unrelenting stalking and divorce litigation battles to come. The long 2-hour drive back to her mother's lakeside Long Island estate blurred past streaks of pouring rain sliding down her sports car's windshield, Elara's white-knuckled grip tight around the steering wheel, as she replayed every single word Julian had spoken to her inside the penthouse over and over on a non-stop mental loop for the entirety of the highway commute north out of Manhattan's crowded midtown skyscraper district. She clutched the unmarked black burner phone tight in one palm resting atop the leather gear shift console between her legs, the anonymous device a silent constant reminder of the dangerous hidden secret they were both now sworn to guard from every prying eye within their overlapping elite social and business circles. By the time she turned her Porsche sports car onto the long gravel private driveway leading up to the sprawling colonial lake house estate her mother owned along the lake's shoreline, midnight had fully fallen over the quiet rural Long Island landscape. Every single lamp inside the multi-story home blazing bright warm gold through the bay windows facing the gravel driveway, irrefutable proof her mother had stayed wide awake pacing the living room for hours on end waiting anxiously for her daughter's safe return home through the pouring city rainstorm earlier that evening. Elara pushed the heavy oak front door open slow and quiet to avoid startling her exhausted worried mother sitting alone on the living room's oversized linen sectional sofa, fully braced for a furious screaming lecture about reckless teenage impulsivity and disrespectful abandonment of the family dinner argument hours prior to midnight. Instead of anger or raised voices, she was met with the broken, hollow sound of her mother's quiet sniffles, her mother's eyes swollen red and raw from hours of silent worried crying, an untouched mug of cold chamomile tea abandoned on the carved oak coffee table positioned directly in front of the sectional seating cushions, where she'd waited for hours pacing back and forth through the living room floorboards. Where on earth have you been all these endless dark rainy hours? Her mother's voice cracked thin and broken with unfiltered maternal fear, devoid of a single trace of the sharp angry frustration that had fueled their explosive backyard argument hours before the sunset over the lake shoreline. I spent every hour since you stormed out of the backyard dinner table convinced you'd lost control of your sports car on those rain-slick Manhattan highway overpasses, and wound up injured stranded on the side of the road somewhere with no cell service to reach me for emergency assistance. Elara's chest flooded thick with crushing guilt the second she laid eyes on her mother's tear-streaked exhausted face. All pre-planned vague half-truth excuses she'd rehearsed non-stop on the 2-hour drive back to the lake house vanishing entirely from her mind's grasp in an instant. I took a long, aimless highway drive through Manhattan's side streets, solely to calm the volatile anger boiling inside me after our heated backyard argument this afternoon. Elara lied soft and vague, deliberately omitting every single detail about her impulsive late-night visit to Julian's Fifth Avenue penthouse, to avoid shattering her mother's decades-long loyal trust in her closest business confidant, without any advance preparation, to break the devastating hidden news of their forbidden romance to her face. I lost complete track of how much time had slipped by staring out at the rain-soaked city skyline through my windshield while I drove circuitous backroads to clear my head of our fight's hurtful words. I cannot express how deeply sorry I am to have left you sitting up all night, consumed with paralyzing fear over my unaccounted-for whereabouts tonight. Her mother stood upright from the linen sectional sofa and crossed the living room's wide oak floorboards in 3 quick strides to pull Elara into a shaky, bone-tight maternal hug, her shoulders trembling soft with the residual hours of unrelenting worry she'd endured waiting alone inside the silent lake house all evening long. I dialed Julian's personal cell phone number roughly an hour ago, hoping he'd caught sight of your sports car wandering through Manhattan's downtown street grid somewhere, and could ease my mind with word of your safety. Her mother admitted, quiet and worn out. He told me flat out he hadn't spotted your vehicle anywhere within the city limits all evening long, and had not crossed paths with you at any point since our lake house backyard barbecue earlier this afternoon. Elara's blood turned icy cold beneath her skin the second those words left her mother's mouth, a heavy wave of suffocating guilt crashing over her chest, as she realized Julian had willingly fabricated a blatant deliberate lie to shield the hidden secret penthouse meeting from her mother's trusting inquiries hours prior that evening. If her mother ever uncovered the full truth of Julian's intentional deception to cover their forbidden late-night rendezvous inside his private high-rise penthouse, every ounce of the decades-long loyal friendship and business partnership she'd nurtured with him since Elara's father was still alive would crumble irreparably overnight beyond any hope of reconciliation or forgiveness between the two of them. I am truly sorry I put you through hours of crippling anxious worry tonight, Elara repeated, soft and remorseful, burying her tear-pricked face deep into the curve of her mother's shoulder to conceal the guilty flush burning hot across her cheeks beneath her foundation makeup. I intend to head straight up the staircase to my second-floor private bedroom to shower and rest for the remainder of the night. We can sit down together tomorrow morning over fresh coffee to talk through our earlier backyard argument calmly once both of our tempers have fully cooled down from the harsh words exchanged this afternoon. Her mother pulled back, gentle from their tight embrace, one soft maternal palm brushing loose strands of blonde hair away from Elara's forehead, in a quiet comforting gesture of unconditional love despite the earlier explosive fight. Don't lock yourself alone inside your bedroom wallowing in quiet heartache all night if our argument left you hurting and upset. Her mother told her, warm and gentle. My bedroom door remains unlocked all evening if you need to come down and talk through whatever heavy weight is weighing down your heart and mind without any judgment or harsh criticism from my side. I hate seeing you rush off alone into dark, rainy city highways after a silly petty family disagreement with nowhere to turn for comfort and support. Elara forced a faint, hollow reassuring smile across her lips to mask the tangled mess of forbidden longing and crushing guilt churning endlessly inside her chest, turning on her heel to climb the wide oak staircase leading up to her private second-floor bedroom suite, at the far end of the upstairs hallway lined with Lakeview Bay windows overlooking the water's dark midnight surface. The unmarked black burner phone remained heavy and hidden deep within the inner lining of her silk crossbody bag slung over one shoulder the entire slow climb up the wooden stair treads, a silent constant reminder of the secret hidden love she and Julian were both forced to guard from every living soul within their overlapping elite social and business family circles moving forward into every coming month of Seraphina's unrelenting vengeful surveillance operations and high-stakes divorce litigation battles downtown. Once she stepped fully inside her private bedroom suite, and twisted the brass deadbolt lock shut tight on the wooden door frame behind her back. She dragged thick blackout linen curtains fully closed across the floor-to-ceiling Lakeview Bay windows to block out every faint glimmer of moonlight shining across the dark midnight lake water stretching outside the glass panes, then pulled the anonymous black burner phone out of her crossbody bag's hidden inner lining to tap open the encrypted secure messaging application pre-installed on the untraceable device's blank home screen. She typed out a short, carefully worded encrypted text message to send straight to Julian's matching burner phone number he'd shared with her earlier inside the Rain Street 5th Avenue penthouse hours prior, the first of hundreds upon thousands of secret untraceable messages they would exchange hidden from Seraphina's private investigators and their respective family members over the coming months of relentless stalking, high society scandal threats, and drawn-out divorce courtroom battles. Downtown Manhattan's family court building. The following week unfolded into an exhausting, emotionally draining endless balancing act of stolen fleeting hidden glances across crowded charity gala ballroom floors, encrypted late-night burner phone text exchanges after their respective family households fell silent asleep for the night, and constant paralyzing paranoia hanging heavy over both their shoulders 24 hours a day from Seraphina's newly hired full-time team of private investigators tracking every single movement they made within Manhattan city limits and surrounding Long Island suburban highway networks alike. Julian sent Elara daily encrypted text updates via the anonymous burner phone detailing every incremental step his elite divorce legal team took to compile damning irrefutable photographic evidence of Seraphina's endless extramarital trysts across Parisian and Milanese five-star luxury hotel suites throughout the past 16 years of their hollow transactional marriage contract. Dozens upon dozens of blurry yet crystal-clear surveillance snapshots captured by his own independent private investigation firm's licensed operatives documenting Seraphina slipping out of upscale hotel lobbies hand-in-hand with different handsome male models and wealthy European art dealers every single night she claimed to be traveling overseas for legitimate charity foundation summit conferences and high-end fashion industry networking events abroad. Meanwhile, Elara navigated tense, awkward daily family interactions with her mother at the Lake House estate and Manhattan downtown hotel corporate office headquarters, her mother repeatedly bringing Julian's name up in casual unplanned household conversation over breakfast, lunch and dinner without the slightest inkling of the forbidden burning romance blooming hidden in secret between her only daughter and her oldest, most trusted 16-year business confidant behind every closed penthouse door and remote mountain cabin weekend retreat they planned in secrecy far from prying elite socialite eyes statewide. Her mother continued extending weekly Sunday brunch dinner invitations out to Julian to join them at the Lake House Estate's lakeside dining room table every single weekend throughout the month, forcing Elara and Julian to sit directly across from one another at the oak dining table beneath her mother's watchful unsuspecting gaze every Sunday morning over fresh croissants and brewed espresso coffee mugs, every split-second lingering eye contact shared between them fraught with suppressed, scorching longing and constant crippling fear of accidentally giving their hidden secret romance away, with a misplaced soft smile, or casual fleeting brush of their knuckles passing a ceramic fruit bowl across the tabletop surface, within her mother's unknowing line of sight. Seraphina's cold, vengeful presence loomed overhead like a dark unending storm cloud hanging over every single elite charity gala and corporate business mixer event the two of them were obligated to attend side by side alongside their overlapping wealthy socialite acquaintances and industry investor partners throughout the month following their Rain Street penthouse confession night together. At a downtown Manhattan contemporary art auction charity gala hosted inside a glass-walled midtown gallery space the following Saturday evening, Seraphina deliberately positioned her own slender ice-cold frame directly in the narrow physical gap separating Elara and Julian for every single hour of the entire fundraising event's cocktail reception and silent auction bidding window alike. Her sharp, cutting, snide, sarcastic remarks targeted straight at Elara's fragile heart non-stop every single time Julian stepped away from their small trio, grouping to shake hands and exchange polite pleasantries, with wealthy multimillion-dollar real estate and hotel industry investor partners spread across the gallery's polished marble floor layout. Still clinging to that childish silly crush on my husband, after all these long months of watching us attend gala events side by side, as a legally married couple in front of all our mutual wealthy social acquaintances. Seraphina purred icy and mocking, swirling an overpriced glass of vintage burgundy red wine between her manicured, diamond-studded fingertips, as her cold icy gaze locked sharp onto Elara's nervous anxious facial expression, while Julian chatted with a circle of male real estate investors a dozen feet away across the gallery floor layout. I've already received full preliminary written surveillance reports handed to me by my private investigation firm's lead operative earlier this week, complete with high-resolution digital video footage capturing your matte black Porsche sports car pulling into Julian's Fifth Avenue penthouse underground parking garage late that rainy weeknight you snuck into his private high-rise residence after your lake house backyard family argument with your mother. I hold all the blackmail leverage I could ever possibly need to utterly annihilate your mother's multi-billion-dollar international luxury hotel brand reputation, and drag your own personal name through the mud as a home-wrecking immature, gold-digging socialite for every high society gossip magazine readership across North America and Western Europe to dissect and mock endlessly if you refuse to permanently back away from my legal husband once, and for all moving forward from this night onward. Elara's slender fingers tightened white-knuckled around the thin stem of her chilled champagne, flute glass resting between her palms atop the gallery's marble cocktail bar counter surface, her pulse spiking sky-high with paralyzing crippling anxiety at Seraphina's open, unmasked threats of tabloid scandal sabotage hanging over her family's decades-built corporate legacy, if she continued sneaking private hidden late-night meetings with Julian within his penthouse residence after dark. Nothing inappropriate or untoward transpired between Julian and myself that rainy evening I drove into Manhattan's Midtown district. Elara forced herself to reply calm and collected despite the raw panic thrumming violent beneath her ribcage. I only stopped by his penthouse residence briefly to deliver confidential legal hotel portfolio paperwork my mother entrusted me to hand over to his corporate real estate legal team for review on upcoming joint development merger negotiations between our two family empires downtown next month. Seraphina let loose a bitter, shrill mocking laugh that echoed loud enough to draw curious side-eyed glances from dozens of nearby wealthy gala attendees milling around the marble gallery cocktail bar surrounding the three of them, tilting her sharp pointed chin upward with unbridled icy arrogant condescension, as she tore apart Elara's flimsy hollow excuse, without a single shred of belief in the fabricated business cover story Elara had hastily constructed to hide their forbidden private penthouse rendezvous from Seraphina's vengeful gaze that evening. Save those pathetic transparent weak excuses for the gullible tabloid junior reporters who lack full access to my extensive network of elite media industry personal contacts across every major Paris, London and New York gossip publishing house. Seraphina snapped cold and venomous. One single fully sourced front-page gossip article detailing your tawdry immature secret crush on a 41-year-old legally married multi-billionaire real estate tycoon will instantly trigger a mass exodus of wealthy seven-figure annual donors pulling their multi-million-dollar annual charity foundation sponsorship funding away from your mother's luxury hotel brand's non-profit charitable outreach programs, overnight, without a single moment's hesitation from any of our shared elite socialite investor acquaintances within Manhattan's old money upper echelons. Before Elara could craft a sharp, well-worded retort to fire back against Seraphina's endless stream of cruel threatening verbal harassment thrown her way across the gallery cocktail bar countertop surface, Julian finished wrapping up his investor networking conversation and turned back toward their small trio grouping positioned alongside the marble bar, one arm casually draped around Seraphina's slender waist in a deliberate performative public display of marital unity constructed solely for the dozens of wealthy gala attendees prying watchful eyes scattered all across the glass-walled gallery floor layout surrounding their spot on the cocktail bar's marble counter edge. His dark hazel eyes flicked quick toward Elara's distressed, anxious facial expression for a split, fleeting half-second. Silent, wordless, unspoken worry hidden deep within their warm irises before he plastered a hollow, polished, socially appropriate, polite corporate smile across his facial features to direct toward his bitter, vengeful legal wife standing pressed against his side for the benefit of every onlooker milling around the gala's crowded marble gallery floor layout. "Darling, cease launching unfounded, baseless accusatory harassment toward Elara in front of all our joint business associates and wealthy social acquaintances gathered here this evening for the art auction charity fundraiser gala," Julian cautioned Seraphina, quiet and low-toned, a subtle, barely perceptible warning laced beneath every soft syllable he spoke to alert her to the mountain of irrefutable photographic surveillance proof his own independent private investigative firm had collected, documenting her endless overseas extramarital affairs stored securely within his downtown corporate legal team's locked evidence vaults, ready to deploy in retaliatory counter-divorce court filings if Seraphina continued orchestrating relentless tabloid blackmail threats against Elara and himself moving forward into the coming months. Seraphina's jaw tightened hard, with suppressed, unbridled, boiling rage the second Julian's subtle hidden warning hit her ears. Yet she forced herself to drop the hostile line of cruel, threatening verbal harassment directed straight at Elara for the remainder of the gala's cocktail reception window, solely to preserve their polished, socially acceptable public marriage facade for the dozens of high-net-worth industry investors and charity foundation donors observing their every interaction spread across the glass-walled art gallery's polished marble floor layout surrounding their cocktail bar spot on the marble counter edge. "Of course, my dearest husband," Seraphina drawled, fake saccharine sweet, with icy venom simmering beneath every hollow, polite syllable she spoke to maintain their manufactured marital public image for the surrounding gala onlookers. "I was merely striking up casual, polite small talk to formally welcome Miss Bennett to tonight's art auction fundraising gala event hosted jointly by our two family corporate charity foundations, downtown Manhattan this evening." Seraphina spun sharply on her diamond-studded stiletto heel and stormed off fast across the gallery's marble floor layout toward the far side open liquor bar counter lined with expensive vintage wine and champagne bottle displays positioned against the glass back wall of the art gallery space, leaving Elara and Julian isolated alone together for a precious handful of unmonitored split seconds, without Seraphina's vengeful, watchful gaze breathing down their necks every waking moment of the evening's gala event timeline. Julian leaned his broad frame in close toward Elara's slender small figure beside the marble cocktail bar counter surface, lowering his voice down to a hushed, quiet murmur only her own ears could catch above the loud background chatter of hundreds of wealthy gala attendees milling around the gallery floor layout surrounding their isolated small spot on the marble bar counter edge, his gaze deliberately fixed down flat against the polished white marble countertop surface to avoid drawing curious, prying onlookers' attention toward the quiet, private words he intended to whisper solely to Elara, without anyone within earshot overhearing their private, forbidden conversation together. Her private investigative firm's surveillance operatives captured digital video footage of your Porsche sports car entering my penthouse underground garage that rainy weeknight. We confessed our hidden mutual longing for one another inside my high-rise residence. Yet their recorded surveillance footage lacks any clear visual proof capturing the two of us interacting side by side within the penthouse residence's interior living space together, Julian explained, quiet and relieved. "My elite divorce legal team has thoroughly reviewed every single piece of surveillance evidence Seraphina's private investigators have managed to compile against us thus far, and the mountain of irrefutable photographic proof we've collected documenting her endless overseas extramarital hotel trysts carries exponentially greater legal weight within Manhattan's high-net-worth divorce family court judges' ruling than her weak circumstantial parking garage surveillance video footage lacking interior visual proof of our private penthouse meeting together that rainy weeknight." Elara's heart still twisted tight with unrelenting, paralyzing fear, despite Julian's quiet, reassuring words spoken low beside her ear against the loud gala background chatter echoing all around the glass-walled art gallery's polished marble floor layout. Her mind racing non-stop with terrifying worst-case scenarios of Seraphina leaking fabricated tabloid gossip articles, destroying her mother's multi-billion-dollar international luxury hotel brand's national and global donor sponsorship funding network overnight, if the vengeful socialite chose to deploy her extensive media industry connections to publish slanderous home-wrecking hit pieces targeting Elara's personal reputation across every major American and European gossip magazine publication, moving forward into the months ahead of Julian's divorce courtroom litigation proceedings downtown Manhattan's family court building. I live in constant unshakable terror. Seraphina will leak fabricated slanderous tabloid gossip stories detailing our forbidden hidden romance before your divorce legal team finalizes all asset separation paperwork and submits fully completed divorce filing documents to the Manhattan Family Court Judge's Office downtown Manhattan. Elara whispered, quiet and shaky, keeping her own lips pressed tight against the cool rim of her chilled champagne flute glass to muffle every soft syllable she spoke so none of the nearby milling wealthy gala attendees overhear their private forbidden conversation hidden beneath the loud background chatter echoing across the art gallery's polished marble floor layout surrounding their cocktail bar spot on the marble counter edge surface. My mother's entire international luxury hotel non-profit charitable outreach foundation relies fully upon continuous multi-million-dollar annual financial sponsorship donations from wealthy elite socialite industry investors within Manhattan's old money upper social circles. The second a single tabloid gossip article links my personal name to a legally married 41-year-old real estate tycoon behind closed penthouse doors after dark, every single wealthy donor will instantly pull all multi-million-dollar annual sponsorship funding commitments away from her hotel brand's charity foundation projects, without a moment's hesitation, to avoid being publicly associated with a tawdry home-wrecking scandal splashed across every front-page gossip headline across 2 continents simultaneously. Julian's warm hazel eyes softened quiet, with sincere heartfelt sympathy, as he listened to Elara's crippling anxiety about her mother's decades-built corporate charitable legacy being destroyed by Seraphina's vengeful tabloid blackmail schemes at any unforeseen moment moving forward into the coming months of divorce litigation battles downtown Manhattan's family court building. I will never allow Seraphina's petty vengeful retaliatory sabotage tactics to destroy your mother's lifelong career spent building her international luxury hotel brand and charitable outreach foundation network from the ground up over decades of relentless hard work and sacrifice. Julian promised her, quiet and firm. My elite corporate divorce legal team has pre-written fully enforceable cease and desist legal letters drafted and stored ready to immediately send to every single tabloid editor. Seraphina maintains personal professional media industry connections with across Paris, London, and New York City alike, threatening massive multi-million-dollar defamation, civil lawsuit filings against every gossip publication that chooses to print any partially true or fully fabricated slanderous hit piece detailing our hidden private romance prior to the Manhattan Family Court judge signing finalized divorce separation decree paperwork dissolving my hollow 16-year transactional marriage contract to Seraphina permanently. A professional event photographer carrying a large DSL digital camera slung over one shoulder wandered past their isolated cocktail bar spot on the marble counter edge surface, a split second after Julian finished delivering his quiet, reassuring promise to Elara beside the marble gallery bar countertop. The camera's wide-angle lens sweeping slow across the dense crowd of wealthy gala attendees spread across the art gallery's polished marble floor layout surrounding their small isolated spot on the marble bar counter edge surface, forcing Elara and Julian to instantly step a deliberate, respectful distance apart from one another and revert back to their pre-planned performative dynamic of distant casual business acquaintances to avoid being captured side by side within any suspicious close-up photographic frames printed in the following week's elite society gossip column publications circulating across Manhattan's old money upper socialite circles statewide New York. The second the wandering gala photographer wandered off toward the far side liquor bar counter lined with vintage wine bottle displays positioned against the art gallery's glass back wall layout out of their immediate line of sight, Julian subtly slipped a folded small square slip of cream-colored stationery paper into Elara's waiting palm, concealed beneath the polished marble cocktail bar countertop surface, while pretending to hand her tiny individual dark chocolate truffle candy plucked off. A silver catering tray, carried past their spot by a uniformed gala waitstaff server walking alongside the marble bar counter edge surface. Elara curled her slender fingers tight, closed around the folded cream paper note slipped into her hidden palm, beneath the marble bar countertop surface, concealing the small folded slip of stationery paper deep within the interior lining of her small silk evening clutch purse slung over one shoulder hanging beside the marble cocktail bar counter edge surface, until she could sneak away undetected into the women's private restroom suite. Tucked at the far rear of the glass-walled art gallery space, to read Julian's handwritten private message fully in complete total privacy, without any prying onlookers, eyes lingering within close earshot, or line of sight surrounding her isolated restroom stall partition walls. Inside a locked private marble restroom stall partition hidden deep within the art gallery's women's restroom suite, at the far rear of the glass-walled gallery floor layout, Elara unfolded the thin cream-colored stationery slip of paper pulled out from her silk evening clutch purse's interior lining to read Julian's neat sharp cursive black ink handwriting scrawled clear across the smooth paper surface in full detail. Remote mountain cabin, front porch, access, security lock numerical passcode. 7419. I will conceal a spare brass, front door house key, beneath the third smooth grey river stone lined up along the wooden front porch stair treads, leading up to the cabin's oak entryway door tomorrow early Friday morning before I drive back into Manhattan Midtown District for corporate board meeting obligations downtown. Meet me at the mountain cabin Friday evening once your mother departs Long Island's Lake House Estate, for a 3-day out-of-state National Charity Foundation conference event hosted upstate New York. Seraphina's private jet flight itinerary confirms she flies overseas to Paris early Thursday morning for a week-long fashion industry gala socialite circuit trip, without advanced surveillance operatives dispatched to track my vehicle's highway travel routes through upstate New York's Pine Forest Mountain Highway Network this coming weekend. Zero risk of Seraphina's hired private investigators capturing photographic footage of us hidden away within the isolated remote mountain cabin deep within the unpopulated pine woodlands for 72 uninterrupted hours of unmonitored private time side by side, without constant surveillance breathing down our necks every single minute of the day and night alike. A quiet fragile flicker of genuine unburdened relief sparked bright deep within Elara's chest the second she finished reading Julian's handwritten private note detailing their upcoming 3-day, uninterrupted hidden mountain cabin weekend escape plan far removed from Manhattan's elite gossip circuit, and Seraphina's relentless vengeful surveillance operatives tracking every movement they made within city and suburban highway networks statewide New York all month long following their reign. Streaked penthouse confession night together. For 72 full uninterrupted hours, tucked deep within the isolated pine forest mountain cabin hidden miles away from every wealthy elite socialite gossip circle, and Seraphina's network of private investigative operatives scattered across Manhattan and Long Island highway surveillance checkpoints alike, they could fully strip away every performative mask of distant casual business acquaintances they were forced to wear in front of every mutual wealthy socialite and corporate industry associate they encountered at gala events and business mixers statewide New York on a weekly recurring schedule, abandon every endless tangled web of hidden lies, and untraceable burner phone encrypted text exchanges they relied upon to shield their forbidden secret romance from prying vengeful eyes moving forward into every coming month of divorce litigation battles downtown Manhattan's family court building, and simply exist openly together, as two people genuinely deeply in love without constant crippling paranoia hanging heavy over their shoulders, every single waking moment of the day and night alike. Elara crumpled the thin cream stationery slip of paper into a tiny compact ball between her slender fingers once she finished memorizing every single line of Julian's handwritten mountain cabin weekend escape plan detailed across the smooth paper surface, tossing the crumpled paper ball straight down into the marble restroom stall's toilet bowl and flushing the water tank lever hard to fully Eliminate any incriminating handwritten physical evidence Seraphina's private investigative operatives might discover if they rummaged through Elara's silk evening clutch purse during an unforeseen surveillance search operation orchestrated by the vengeful socialite moving forward into the coming weeks of relentless stalking statewide New York highway networks and elite gala event spaces across Manhattan Midtown District. When Elara stepped back out of the locked private restroom stall partition and crossed the marble women's restroom floor layout toward the wall-mounted polished silver mirror hanging above the granite sink countertop surface lining the restroom's far interior wall layout, she caught her own weary, anxious facial reflection staring back at her through the clear silver-backed mirror glass pane surface, her cheeks flushed soft with a tangled mix of nervous anticipatory excitement for their upcoming 3-day isolated mountain cabin weekend escape plan, and lingering crippling anxiety about Seraphina's endless vengeful tabloid blackmail threats hanging constantly over her family's multi-billion-dollar corporate hotel legacy, at every unforeseen moment moving forward into the months ahead of Julian's divorce courtroom litigation battles downtown Manhattan's family court building. By the time the art auction charity gala's silent auction bidding window fully closed and her mother signaled it was time for the two of them to exit the glass-walled Midtown Art Gallery space and drive back 2 hours north to their Long Island Lake House estate along rain-slicked rural highway routes late Saturday evening, Elara had barely exchanged more than a handful of split-second secret fleeting eye contact with Julian across the dense crowd of wealthy gala attendees spread across the gallery's polished marble floor layout surrounding their isolated cocktail bar spot on the marble counter-edge surface, all evening long, without Seraphina's vengeful watchful gaze positioned directly between them blocking every possible private split-second interaction they might share hidden from prying elite socialite onlookers milling around the gallery floor layout surrounding their small trio grouping alongside the marble cocktail bar countertop surface all night long. As Elara climbed into her matte black Porsche sports car's passenger seat, beside her mother behind the vehicle's steering wheel to depart the Midtown Manhattan Art Gallery's underground parking garage lot and drive north back toward the Long Island Lake House Estate's gravel private driveway layout late Saturday evening, Elara twisted her head around to glance backward through the sports car's rear windshield glass pane surface to catch sight of Julian standing alone isolated on the glass walled art gallery's front marble entryway staircase landing overlooking the underground parking garage lot's vehicle exit ramp layout, his dark hazel eyes locked steady fixed straight upon Elara's sports car's rear windshield glass pane surface until the vehicle rounded a sharp highway overpass curve out of his unobstructed line of sight entirely as they merged onto the northbound Long Island rural highway route leading back to the Lake House Estate's private gravel driveway layout miles north of Manhattan Midtown District's crowded skyscraper skyline silhouettes fading into the dark rainy midnight horizon stretching far off in the distance ahead of their vehicle's windshield glass pane surface. That night, hours after Elara and her mother returned to the quiet empty Lake House estate, and her mother retired downstairs to her private ground floor bedroom suite for the evening hours of sleep, Elara laid wide awake beneath the silk linen comforter draped across her second-floor bedroom suite's king-sized bed frame staring blank up at the dark blackout, curtain-covered ceiling overhead, fingers tapping slow across the untraceable anonymous burner phone's touchscreen display surface to type out a lengthy encrypted text message addressed straight to Julian's matching anonymous burner phone number detailing every tangled mix of crippling paralyzing fear and fragile, quiet hopeful anticipation swirling endlessly inside her chest regarding their upcoming 3-day, isolated remote mountain cabin weekend escape plan scheduled to commence that coming Friday evening upstate New York deep within the unpopulated Pine Forest Mountain Highway network miles removed from Manhattan's elite gossip circuit and Seraphina's relentless surveillance operatives. Tracking every vehicle's highway travel routes statewide new all month long following their rain-streaked penthouse confession night together downtown Manhattan Midtown District's Fifth Avenue high-rise penthouse residence layout. Julian's encrypted reply text message pinged the burner phone's touchscreen display surface roughly 20 minutes after Elara finished sending her lengthy worried hopeful message detailing her conflicting chaotic emotions about their upcoming mountain cabin weekend retreat plan upstate New York deep within the pine forest mountain ranges miles removed from every prying elite socialite and vengeful surveillance operatives, watchful gaze statewide New York. The short, concise, reassuring lines of text reading clear across the untraceable device's blank home screen display surface. No matter what cruel, vengeful, retaliatory tactics Seraphina chooses to deploy against us this coming weekend, or in every future month of divorce litigation battles downtown Manhattan family court building, I will stand fully beside you to shield you from every ounce of harm and scandalous sabotage she attempts to orchestrate against your family's corporate legacy and personal reputation alike moving forward. Without hesitation or cowardice on my part. This remote mountain cabin weekend marks the very first uninterrupted stretch of 72 full hours we will ever share side by side, without forced performative distant acquaintance masks and constant surveillance operatives breathing down our necks every single minute of day and night. We will finally shed every tangled web of hidden lies and untraceable encrypted burner phone text exchanges weighing heavy on both our shoulders, and simply be fully unapologetically ourselves together far removed from Manhattan's vicious elite gossip socialite circuit for 3 whole days of quiet unmonitored peace and unhidden mutual love, without interruption of any kind from Seraphina's endless vengeful harassment schemes statewide New York highway networks and elite gala event spaces across Midtown Manhattan district alike. The coming Friday afternoon arrived far faster than Elara had anticipated amid a month of endless gala event obligations and constant paralyzing paranoia of Seraphina's surveillance operatives tracking every vehicle's highway travel routes statewide New York all month long following their rain-streaked penthouse confession night together downtown Manhattan Midtown District's 5th Avenue penthouse residence layout. Early Friday morning bright at dawn, Elara's mother packed a large rolling canvas suitcase full of conference attire and Charity Foundation presentation materials into the back of her white luxury SUV vehicle parked alongside the Lake House Estates gravel private driveway layout, pressing a quick, soft, affectionate maternal kiss against Elara's forehead surface before climbing into the volunteer group's shared multi-passenger van vehicle scheduled to depart 2 hours north upstate New York, along rural mountain highway routes leading toward the 3-day National Charity Foundation conference event venue located deep within upstate New York's Pine Forest Mountain small town district miles removed from Manhattan Midtown District's crowded skyscraper skyline silhouettes stretching south along the state's highway network layout. Before her mother's volunteer conference van vehicle pulled out of the Lake House Estates long gravel private driveway layout and merged onto the northbound rural highway route leading upstate New York deep within the Pine Forest mountain ranges miles away from Manhattan's elite gossip circuit and Seraphina's network of private investigative operatives scattered across statewide highway surveillance checkpoints all month long following their penthouse confession night together downtown Midtown District's 5th Avenue high-rise penthouse residence layout. Her mother waved one arm over across the lake's dark midnight shoreline toward Julian's smaller secondary vacation townhouse property positioned across the wide lake water surface stretching opposite the Bennett's Lake House Estate gravel private driveway layout along the shoreline's oak tree-lined embankment edge surface. Mentioning casually in passing she'd received an earlier encrypted text message from Julian's personal primary cell phone number informing her he planned to drive out to the Lake House Estate Saturday morning to drop off a large cardboard box full of donated contemporary art auction charity gala items collected from his downtown Manhattan Midtown corporate office storage vaults to hand over to her Charity Foundation's conference event volunteer team for display at the 3-day upstate New York conference venue's fundraising silent auction bidding window layout the following weekend hours after their mountain cabin retreat weekend, scheduled to commence Friday evening upstate New York deep within the unpopulated Pine Forest Mountain Highway network miles removed from every prying elite socialite and vengeful surveillance operatives, watchful gaze statewide New York all month long following their penthouse confession night together downtown Midtown District's 5th Avenue high-rise penthouse residence layout. Elara's stomach twisted tight, with heavy crushing guilt the second her mother casually referenced Julian's pre-planned Saturday morning lake house estate visit cover story constructed solely as a hollow fabricated alibi to explain any unforeseen sightings of Julian's black luxury SUV vehicle traveling upstate New York's Pine Forest Mountain Highway network routes, near the remote isolated cabin's gravel private driveway layout. If Seraphina's hired private investigative operatives managed to track his vehicle's GPS coordinate data signals along rural upstate highway surveillance checkpoint cameras scattered across the state's mountain rural road network layout, that coming Friday evening through Sunday evening 3-day retreat weekend, scheduled deep within the unpopulated pine woodlands miles removed from Manhattan's elite gossip circuit downtown Midtown District's Fifth Avenue penthouse residence layout all month long following their Rain Street penthouse confession night together. Once her mother's volunteer conference van vehicle vanished fully out of sight rounding the sharp curve at the far end of the Lake House Estate's long gravel private driveway layout, and merged onto the northbound rural upstate New York mountain highway route stretching miles deep within the Pine Forest mountain ranges far removed from Manhattan Midtown District's crowded skyscraper skyline silhouettes, and Seraphina's statewide network of surveillance operatives, scattered across highway checkpoints all month long following their penthouse confession night together downtown Fifth Avenue high-rise penthouse residence layout. Elara grabbed a small lightweight canvas weekend duffel bag from the second-floor bedroom suite's walk-in closet rack surface, and stuffed minimal casual clothing, basic toiletries, and skincare products inside the soft fabric bag's interior compartment space, slipping the two untraceable anonymous burner phones, primary and backup spare device Julian had handed her weeks prior within his Fifth Avenue penthouse residence layout, deep within the hidden inner lining of her cream silk crossbody leather bag slung over one shoulder hanging beside the duffel bag's canvas fabric strap loop surface, before stepping out the Lake House Estate's oak front entryway door frame layout and crossing the gravel private driveway layout toward her matte black Porsche sports car parked alongside the oak tree-lined lakeshore embankment edge surface stretching opposite Julian's small secondary lake townhouse property positioned across the wide lake water surface stretching far off in the distance ahead of the vehicle's windshield glass pane layout overlooking the dark lake water's midnight smooth surface reflecting faint cloud-covered moonlight glimmers above the treetop silhouettes, lining the lake's far shoreline embankment edge surface stretching miles away from the Bennett's Lake House Estate gravel private driveway layout along the oak tree-lined shoreline embankment edge surface stretching opposite Julian's small secondary lake townhouse property positioned across the wide lake water surface stretching far off in the distance ahead of the vehicle's windshield glass pane surface, overlooking the dark lake water's midnight smooth surface, reflecting faint cloud-covered moonlight glimmers above the treetop silhouettes, lining the lake's far shoreline embankment edge surface stretching miles away from the Bennett's Lake House Estate gravel private driveway layout along the oak tree-lined shoreline embankment edge surface stretching opposite Julian's small secondary lake townhouse property positioned across the wide lake water surface stretching far off in the distance ahead of the vehicle's windshield glass pane surface, overlooking the dark lake water's midnight smooth surface reflecting faint cloud-covered moonlight glimmers above the treetop silhouettes lining the lake's far shoreline embankment edge surface stretching miles away from the Bennett's Lake House Estate gravel private driveway layout along the oak tree-lined shoreline embankment edge surface stretching opposite Julian's small secondary lake townhouse property positioned across the wide lake water surface stretching far off in the distance ahead of the vehicle's windshield glass pane surface, overlooking the dark lake water's midnight smooth surface, reflecting faint cloud-covered moonlight glimmers above the treetop silhouettes lining the lake's far shoreline embankment edge surface stretching miles away from the Bennett's Lake House Estate gravel private driveway layout along the oak tree-lined shoreline embankment edge surface stretching opposite Julian's small secondary lake townhouse property positioned across the wide lake water surface stretching far off in the distance ahead of the vehicle's windshield glass pane surface, overlooking the dark lake water's midnight smooth surface, reflecting faint cloud-covered moonlight glimmers above the treetop silhouettes lining the lake's far shoreline embankment edge surface stretching miles away from the Bennett's Lake House estate gravel private driveway layout along the oak tree-lined shoreline embankment edge surface stretching opposite Julian's small secondary lake townhouse property positioned across the wide lake water. Surface stretching far off in the distance ahead of the vehicle's windshield glass pane surface, overlooking the dark lake water's midnight smooth surface, reflecting faint cloud-covered moonlight glimmers above the treetop silhouettes lining the lake's far shoreline embankment edge surface stretching miles away from the Bennett's Lake House estate gravel private driveway layout along the oak tree L.